Go for deploy.
Underspeed, drifting to the right, roll. Contact right. The Eagle has landed.
Hey guys, Tori here from Overlook Horizon. It's another launch day. Who's tired of launches? Nobody, right? You can't be tired of launches. We got another one, another Falcon 9 launching today. I'm still trying to get over Starship the other day. I mean, that was ridiculous. That was awesome. But anyways, in case you're watching the replay, let's get you up to speed and let you know where we are and what's happening. It is December 11th at 12:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is 1725 UTC. So just in case you're watching the replay, you can get an idea of when we were live. And if you are watching the replay, I'll put timestamps in the description below in case you want to skip ahead. But for everybody here live, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Got kind of an exciting mission. A little bit of weather concerns for today. We'll have to see if it's going to hold up here because upper level winds are going to be a bit of a concern here today. So we'll keep an eye on whether or not we're actually going to be able to launch. And this is going to be interesting because we're going to have to talk about these upper level winds because this is an unusual situation than we normally would see with upper level winds. So it'll be an interesting discussion about upper level winds. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. No, I see Gary says no booms today. Yeah, this is not an experimental launch. This is an operational mission. So obviously we do not want any booms today, unlike Starship, which is experimental. The boom is okay. No big deal. But this is what we're launching today. We probably ought to jump into it and get right to it because SpaceX will be live here in about probably 15 minutes or so. We'll listen into them. Then to give you an idea on the actual launch day and the schedule for today, we've got 28 minutes to our targeted launch time. This is almost exact, maybe not exact to the second, because I'll have to get in sync with SpaceX once they go live. We'll sync up the clocks, but it's a pretty close. It may be a couple of seconds, up to 20 seconds off here, but it's pretty close. So we'll launch in about 27 minutes, hopefully, as long as the winds cooperate today. After launch, we've got about 30 minutes until deployment. We'll deploy, call it a day. Now, what we're launching today is a communication satellite for SiriusXM. Anybody out there with satellite radio? This is SiriusXM's satellite. It's going to replace one of their existing satellites that's up there right now, the SXM-3 satellites. This will be the SXM-7 satellites, heading to eventually geostationary Earth orbit. But the Falcon 9 is actually going to drop it into geostationary transfer orbit, which is an elliptical orbit that is elongated between low Earth orbit and geostationary orbit. And then the spacecraft itself, the satellites, will get itself into geostationary Earth orbit after the deployment happens. So that's what we're looking at today. We'll get to a couple questions, but before we do, let's jump in and talk a little bit about what's happening today. So here's our mission here, the Falcon 9 on the pad. This is Launch Pad 40, Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station down in at Cape Canaveral, Florida. We've got a reuse booster here today, and one half of the fairing is also being reused as well. You can see we've got our, I should probably even go like this, get myself out of the way here, or get all my stuff out of the way, but this is going to be a drone ship landing today out at sea on the Autonomous Spaceport drone ship. So we're landing out at sea. There is no, well, actually, this says there's a boost back burn. I was about to say there's no boost back burn, but why does it say there's a boost back burn? Interesting. Maybe we have a boost back burn today. I was not expecting that. I overlooked that. But usually we don't have a boost back burn, but maybe we got enough fuel today that we're going to have a boost back burn. At least a small boost back burn, not enough to actually land at, not an RTLS landing, but looks like we do have, that's not on my event list today. Now I'm confused. Okay, well, I overlooked that today. So that's going to be interesting. But usually we would just see an entry burn right before we enter the atmosphere, and then the landing burn, but it's interesting. We'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. But let's take a look at a few of our other things here. We've got our flight path here today, so we're heading almost directly to the east here today. This is courtesy of flightclub.io here. So we can see under powered flight here, we'll have separation. Second stage goes on to orbit. Here's our entry burn and our landing burn. And even Flight Club doesn't have a boost back burn on there as well. Although I know he was just working on it. He was actually in Boca Chica for the Starship launch. That's Declan from Flight Club. So he was just working on the simulation. So I think this is up to date. I just refreshed it right before we went live. So I think it should be up to date. But we're heading pretty much directly to the east here. Let's see, can I do this? Yep, there we go. Pretty much almost an equatorial orbit. And our let's see, the operational orbit's going to be 85 degrees west geostationary, 85.15 degrees west geostationary Earth orbit. That's the final one. I was looking for see if I had what the actual apogee was going to be for the geostationary transfer orbit, but I don't have that information, unfortunately. All right, let's. Oh, and speaking of Flight Club here, we do have again. We're going to do the Flight Club telemetry here. Right up there. We've got this all situated here for today's flight. So more telemetry from Flight Club that we're going to show up here. This is simulated telemetry. It's not actually from the webcast itself, but it's simulated. It's a very, very educated guess. This will be, the Starship one turned out to be off. I mean, who could have predicted that except for the people in Starship or at SpaceX? Oh, we're off to a good start. But this is going to be much more accurate because this is a vehicle that we know lots about. And when I say we, I mean Declan at Flight Club knows lots about. Much easier to simulate what's going to happen for trajectory here today. So this should be a very, very good idea on what's actually happening for our launch trajectory today. But in here, we'll show before we get to the big question, the weather, we'll show our launch hazards map here. So obviously we've got the drone ship out here, which is that blue pin, and then our fairing catching ships out here, which is the green pin. We've only got one fairing catching ship out there. It's Go Miss Tree. Go Searcher is going to pluck one of them out of the water. At least that's my understanding as of this point here. And I don't think we don't have a second stage re-entry point here anywhere. So usually we would have a second stage hazard option. So I don't think they're bringing the second stage back. Probably going to put that in some sort of disposal burn, I assume. But we don't have a second stage hazard area for today. All right, let's get to... Let me look at one thing that my moderators are saying to me. Questioning, do we have... Let me look at settings here real quick. before we do that. No, we're okay. Everything's normal. That's for Framrick. Question you just sent me in Discord. Oh, and I do see Mike. Oh, Mike. My favorite name from the other day. Mike. Guess what day it is? It's not hump day anymore. Now it's Friday. But thanks, Mike. Thanks for Mike for the super chat. Mike says, "Yo, brother, nice to watch again." Thank you very much. I'll read your name out all day just because I want to say Mike. All right, let's go to. I'll grab a couple of your questions. I see some questions coming in here in just a minute, but I do want to talk about, before we get there, we want to talk about the weather, because that is going to be the big question here for today. Is the weather going to cooperate? This is air pressure, which is what I was looking at earlier. Now, this is interesting. The 45th Space Wing called for the weather to be a 10% chance of violating launch constraints, which means 90% chance of go. You would think, oh, wow, that sounds fantastic. 90% chance of go. We're launching today. They usually have an additional criteria here, which you can see. This is upper level wind shear, because this 10% does not include upper level winds in that percentage. This is just launch conditions at the launch site. So usually we have additional criteria, which we see upper level winds, booster recovery for SpaceX missions, solar activity even. But interestingly, they said upper level wind shear risk criteria was low, but that's the thing that's going to be the watch item for today, is those upper level winds. And it is, as I had mentioned earlier, it's a bit of an interesting watch item here, because the ground level winds are very, very calm. 3, 4, 5, 6 miles per hour. As you go up in altitude, still not too much. At 2,500 meters, 12 miles per hour. You go up to 4,200 meters, 4.2 kilometers here, 16 miles per hour. Still nothing, really, in terms of wind. A little bit higher, 5,500 meters, 17 miles per hour. You go up, but then you go up to your upper level winds, which we consider to be anywhere right around like 12 kilometers. That kind of area there is usually upper level winds, which is around like 35, 40,000 feet in altitude. This is where your winds usually pick up. So this is where you would see your upper level winds pick up. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting. The upper level winds today, only 75 miles per hour. You think, well, 75 miles per hour, we'd launch rockets in 75 miles per hour. That's nothing. There are two factors. It's not just wind speed that is the factor for upper level winds. Wind speed is, certainly part of the factor, but there's also wind direction and how quickly that speed changes in altitude. So as you noticed, as I stepped up in altitude, really didn't change a whole lot. We were at 5, 10 miles per hour. We bumped up to 15 miles per hour. All of a sudden, right between here, we're at 70 miles per hour at 9 kilometers. At 5.5 kilometers, the next level down, we're at 17 miles per hour. So it jumps up from 17 to 70 in a very small space there. That's where we're going to have a problem. So that's basically the main concern today, is going to be those upper level winds, and will they cooperate? Are they going to cooperate today? We don't know yet. We're going to have to wait until SpaceX goes live and find out if they're going to work with us here. So, everything else in terms of weather is looking okay. We've got our radars okay. There's no precipitation in the area. Satellites, some clouds in the area, but I don't think it was going to be a major concern for today. It is part of that 10%, the cumulus cloud rule here, but it sounds like that's not going to be the big watch item here for today. But there are clouds that are in the area, but it's really those upper level winds that we were looking at today. Wave conditions sometimes can play a role for booster recovery, but those are almost nothing here today. It's pretty calm out there. 3-foot waves, 1 meter. It's nothing. We're good to go. So, I see Gregorius, one of our moderators, we probably should mention it today just because there's a lot of people that maybe are not up to speed, which is that the SN8 Starship that was supposed to be the next up to fly after, did I say SN8? SN9 Starship. I don't know what I said, 8 or 9, but the SN9 Starship, the one I'm talking about, was supposed to be the next up after SN8. They were going to move it to the launch pad on Monday, but today it tipped over inside the vertical assembly building. So that could be a problem. Luckily, it didn't tip over a ton. If you're in our Discord server, which is free to join if you want to join our Discord, but in our Discord server, there are some pictures of it tipped over. It was inside the vehicle, the vertical assembly building there, tipped over a little bit, leaned against the wall, but not a super great situation there if you're generally you don't want things tipping over, but whether they can save it and still launch it, or they're going to have to scrap it and use it for parts and move on to SN10, we don't know. But that was a bit of a bummer. That's probably the worst part of the Starship situation right now. The actual explosion of SN8, that's no big deal. It doesn't impact the operations whatsoever. But SN9 tipping over and leaning against the side of the building or hitting the side of the building, that's a much bigger deal. That's a problem. So, all right, I think we got through. Did we get through all my stuff? Did I get through it all? I got through it all. Oh, and just one last thing before I grab your questions, because people ask all the time, like, what do we mean by geostationary orbit? It's this red ring that's out here. That's our geostationary ring there. So you have, basically, there's three like main orbits. There's some wiggle room in between there, but you've got your low Earth orbit, which is where Starlink is right there. That's the blue section that we're seeing here. That's low Earth orbit. You've got medium Earth orbit, which is typically used for GPS satellites. That's the blue ring I have up there now. Those are a lot of our GPS satellites. That's the Navstar constellation I'm showing. And then the actual geostationary orbit is much further out here. Let's see, we gotta mute this because it looks like SpaceX is live. So we're gonna switch them, get them pulled up here. But so this is replacing one of the SiriusXM satellite. It's SiriusXM-3, which I think is this one that it's replacing. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but it's gonna be out here in geostationary orbit. All right, let's get SpaceX up on the screen here so that we can listen in and watch with them. I'll grab a couple of your questions. Let's get the volume up.
And on your screen is a live view of the Falcon 9 awaiting its 12:55 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. My name is Kate Tice, and I'm a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Welcome to our webcast coverage for the launch of SiriusXM's SXM-7 satellite. You may know SiriusXM for its ad-free curated music channels, or for its use of satellites to provide users with digital audio radio services. Today, to replace existing satellite services, SpaceX will launch the company's next generation high-power broadcasting satellite, SXM-7. Following today's launch, the SXM-7 payload will join 5 other satellites in SiriusXM's active satellite fleet. After joining the fleet, there's an expectation that the payload will replace the XM-3 satellite to help ensure continuous and reliable delivery of SiriusXM's audio, entertainment, and data services to consumers in the United States. This effort will also help SiriusXM expand services to consumers in Canada and the Caribbean. Today's launch marks the 25th SpaceX mission this year and the 7th flight for this particular booster, which is pretty exciting. So with that, let's take a closer look at that vehicle for today's mission. So there on your screen, you have a look at our launch pad located in Cape Canaveral, and you see a healthy Falcon 9 cycling through its launch day processes in preparation for its 12:55 p.m. Eastern liftoff. Falcon 9, our 2-stage liquid-fueled launch vehicle, sits on Space Launch Complex 40. It stands about 229 feet or 70 meters tall, which is a little bigger than the wingspan of a 747 airplane. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is what we call the first stage. As I mentioned earlier, it will be taking flight for the 7th time today. The first stage is responsible for accelerating the vehicle all the way through to the edge of space, where it will drop off the second stage along with the payload. Once the drop-off is complete, we'll attempt to recover that first stage on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, which you see there on your screen, which is currently positioned out in the Atlantic Ocean. If we stick the landing today,
Looks
it will
like a good
mark
day
our
out there.
69th successful booster recovery. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first and second stage will separate, and the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine to carry the SXM-7 satellite to a highly elliptical orbit. Separation from second stage will occur about 4,000 kilometers above Earth, and then the satellite will perform burns to raise its position to enter a circular medium Earth orbit, or MEO, and reach an apogee of about 20,200 kilometers above Earth. At the top of your screen there, you can see a nose cone-shaped object that sits atop the vehicle. That's the payload fairing, and housed inside there is the SXM-7 satellite. The fairing measures 17 feet, or about 5 meters in diameter, and about 43 feet, or 13 meters tall. The payload fairing protects the satellite from aerodynamic heating, loads, and contamination during ascent. Once we get into the vacuum of space, the payload will no longer need that protection, so we'll jettison the fairing halves to save some weight as the second stage continues on with the satellite to its targeted drop-off orbit. The fairing halves that you see there, we used them on a previous mission. This is the second time that they are being flown. Both halves previously supported the K-MILSAT-1 mission back in July earlier this year. Due to upgrades on our recovery vessel, Ms. Chief, we'll retrieve one of the fairing halves with our recovery vessel, Ghost Searcher, and then attempt to catch the other half using our recovery vessel, Ms. Tree. The large truss structure that you see on the pad next to Falcon 9 is called the Transporter Erector, or TE. The TE is used to roll out Falcon 9 from the hangar to the launch pad and then raise Falcon 9 to its vertical launch position. The TE also routes power, fluids, and communication to both the rocket and satellite. So now that we've gone over some of the hardware that's essential to executing this launch, let's take a closer look at today's payload. Weighing in at almost 7,000 kilograms and over 100 feet long when its solar arrays are completely deployed, the 27-foot tall SXM-7, built on Maxar's 1300 class platform, is designed to provide service for more than 15 years. This satellite's unique design also features a large unfurlable S-band reflector to broadcast audio and data signals to users on the ground. By joining SiriusXM's already active fleet, the SXM-7 will deliver the highest power density of any commercial satellite on orbit. This new satellite will send more than 8,000 watts of content to the continental United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean, which in turn provides users with better signal quality and broader reach. Now, as the clock continues to count down, we're approaching T-minus 7 minutes and 45 seconds. We're looking forward to an on-time liftoff. Let's take a moment now to learn a little bit more about SXM-7.
All right, so they're going to play some music here, so we'll keep this up so you can see it. I don't think I have, usually I don't have captions available for it, but we'll keep this up so at least you can see it. And I was going to show, they're going to show it anyway. I was about to show you an image of what the satellite looked like, but looks like they're going to show it to you. So we'll grab, while they're showing it up here, grab a couple of questions. Somebody said, wanted to know if they were going to, what was going to happen to SXM-3, the one that's up there, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't think they have any plans to deorbit it.
It's gonna deorbit.
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for the old one. A lot of times they may, if it's in geostationary Earth orbit, they may boost it to a disposal orbit. But I don't know if there's enough propellant to actually. It would be a little bit difficult, I think, to try to bring it back and deorbitate. So I would suspect that maybe they boost it to like a disposal burn, but I don't know the answer if anybody else does.
Our Falcon 9 team performed functional checkouts for the SXM-7 satellite. At T-minus 38 minutes, the team concluded their electronic go, no-go poll and gave the okay to proceed into propellant load and launch. To keep both stages of the vehicle cooled as much as possible close to launch, the team at Cape Canaveral began loading propellant at T-minus 35 minutes. Since the second stage Merlin engine is very similar to the first stage Merlin engines, both the first and second stages get to use the same propellants. Our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as Rocket Propellant 1, or RP1, and our oxidizer is super chilled liquid oxygen, LOX. We chill the liquid oxygen to be as cold as we can get it, which allows us to load more LOX and makes it super dense with oxygen molecules. Both of these things give us better performance with those Merlin engines. This also helps us to avoid the need to continue topping off prior to launch in order to make up for losses due to boiling. Now at this point, second stage is fully loaded with RP1, and the first stage looks like it is complete as well. Also, at this point in time, liquid oxygen is being loaded onto both the first and second stages. We're also loading helium into the storage vessels on the first and second stages. During flight, we pass this cold helium through heat exchangers on the Merlin engines. The heat of the gas generator exhaust turns that cold helium into hot helium, therefore expanding it. That expanded helium gas is then used to fill the empty volume in the tanks created by the engine pumps that pull the propellant out of the stage. Very shortly, we'll open the pre-valves between the first stage engines and the propellant tanks. We started to do engine chilling. You might have heard that call out a couple minutes ago, around T-minus 7 minutes. Basically, by opening those valves, we allow some of that super cool liquid oxygen to flow into the turbo pumps, which helps us to avoid any thermal shocks that might occur when we start those pumps up at T-minus 2 seconds to light the Merlin engines. And it looks like we got some strong back transporter erector action there, slightly moving backward away from the rocket. So we're currently at just under T-minus 4 minutes. Everything appears to be on track for our on-time launch. The range is green, and as for weather, we've been keeping an eye on those upper altitude winds today, but right now, everything is looking favorable.
That's good news.
If for some reason we have to call a hold on today's launch, we have a backup opportunity tomorrow with a liftoff time scheduled for about the same time. But as for now, all systems continue to be go for a liftoff at 12:55 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. All right, well, while things are quieted down, I saw Michael D send over a super chat. Thanks, Michael D. Says, watching your face expression during a successful flight is priceless. Thanks, Tori.
So
well,
first stage fuel loading
I'm just a giant kid.
Around T-minus
But thank you,
minutes.
Michael. Thanks for your support there.
We're currently waiting for that first stage LOX load to complete. We should be hearing the call out for that any moment. And second stage liquid oxygen loading will complete around T-minus 2 minutes. Just a minute before liftoff, you'll hear the announcement that Falcon 9 is in startup. This announcement means that the rocket's own internal computers are now controlling the launch countdown on Falcon 9. Once the engines are confirmed to be at full power, the flight computer on the second stage will then command the ground hold downs to release the rocket right at T0. Our satellite team continues to monitor the health and status of that SXM-7 satellite located there in the fairing that you see on your screen. Currently, all systems are go on the satellite.
A couple of people asked what all the noise is in the background, the bangs and everything else. SpaceX does their webcast directly above the cafeteria at SpaceX, so all the noise you're hearing while Kate Tice is talking is just people banging things around the cafeteria.
For launch, and weather continues to look good.
Michael, thanks for the super hearts over on Periscope. Really appreciate that. Thanks, man. So we're coming down. We should get One final big vent here. This is ground gas closeout. At a minute and a half, you'll see a big vent, which is starting on the right side of the transport erector right there. See all the venting that's happening. They're draining the lines inside the transport erector. Now we can actually hear it. It's a little bit windy. I'll turn this up too as well. Usually, Launch Pad 40, which is what we're at today, has amazing pad microphones. The last couple times, though, they've cut the microphones right at launch, which is driving me crazy, or at least the last one launch. So hopefully today they keep the pad mics up, because I'll crank the volume. So we're under 1 minute. We should be coming up on the launch director's go for launch at 45 seconds. Let me make sure our Flight Club stuff is still in sync. It looks good. Pretty close. We're gonna switch over to... I didn't hear it go for launch. See if we make it past 30 seconds. That's when they would call a weather hold.
Hold on the primary countdown. Launch port's running.
We gotta hold. That would be, that's gonna be a scrub for today. Come on!
As you just heard, we did hear a hold called out today. The clock is stopped at T-minus 30 seconds. We're going to check in with the teams. Give us a moment, and we'll see what we can get you.
Well, we got to hold. I think that should be a scrub for today because the window closes in about... They got a half an hour. They have a half an hour left in the window, but it's not enough time. It's not enough time to recycle. So... well, and also keep in mind, so they just switched the clock to 15 minutes. That's part of the abort procedure. That is not an indication that they're going to restart. That's just part of their standard operating procedure. When they call a hold like this, they automatically recycle the clock to T-minus 15 minutes. I don't think, because there's not enough time to recycle. I don't think they have enough time to recycle. Maybe. It'd be very close, but I don't think there's enough time to recycle. I'm assuming... There's some venting. Oh, that was a loud vent. I'm assuming this hold was due to upper level winds, because that was our big watch item today. So... Everything Space says, I think there is enough time. Doesn't it take like 15 minutes? It's definitely more than 15 minutes. It's a minimum of 15 minutes. But then usually they have to... Usually there's a recycle period before they can even start that. Sometimes they... Because remember, the Falcon 9 has to have enough propellant in the tank and at the correct temperature in order to launch. So it's super cold, super densified liquid oxygen, and the RP-1 rocket-grade kerosene is even densified as well. It's not quite as cold as liquid oxygen, but they're super cold temperatures so that the liquids are dense. They're not in gaseous expanded form. They're in dense liquid form, and that's how they can pack so much power into the Falcon 9. As the longer it sits there on the pad, the more it boils up, heats up. They have to vent it off. They can't keep it in there anymore. So yeah, generally they have to do some sort of top off at least. Now I don't recall what the shortest recycle time is, but I recall that they might be able to do it within like, I think usually it's about 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes, not actually 30 minutes. And we have less than that left in the launch window. So it's very tight. I think it's a scrub for today, but we'll wait and we'll listen and see. Because they didn't just end it right away. So that's a more promising sign, is the fact that they didn't just be like, well, it's scrubbed, goodbye. But
as you just heard on the countdown net, we had a hold called at T-minus 30 seconds. Prior to that, the countdown was proceeding nominally, keeping in mind that the purpose of the countdown is to help us catch any potential issues prior to flight. There are 1,000 ways a launch can go wrong, and only one way that it can go right. given that we are overly cautious on the ground, and if the team or the vehicle sees anything that looks even just slightly off, they'll stop the countdown. Overall, the vehicle appears to be in good health, but that will be ending our launch attempt for today. Keep an eye out on our social media accounts for the announcement of our next launch opportunity. Until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. So that was my fear, was going to end their launch attempt right there, because there's just not enough time to recycle. They only had 25 minutes left in the launch window. It's their abort procedure is a minimum of 15 minutes, but like that's if they abort and start the clock right away, which never happens. And usually they have to calculate in some time to refuel the rocket, and so usually you're talking like at least 30, 45 minutes to an hour at a minimum for any sort of recycle once you start putting fuel in the rocket, because that's really the big thing. Once you start putting fuel in the rocket, it's got to be that certain temperature. If it's not, you're not gonna have the right amount of power to get into the orbit. So it is we're gonna be scrubbed for the day. We did not get a launch, and they will try again tomorrow, which of course we'll cover again tomorrow, it's about the same time tomorrow, almost the same time. So as Jamie points out, an abort or a scrub is better than a disaster. That is true. We don't know exactly why. Maybe they'll tweet it out here in just a minute, but I'm assuming that it's due to upper level winds. That is usually when they call a hold at 30 seconds like that. Typically that's what your final weather gate is at 30 seconds. So a lot of times if the range is red, even they'll run it down to 30 seconds just to see, like, maybe can we get it in there? Will it be okay? And in this case, it was not, so they called the hold at 30 seconds. That's where the final weather gate is before launch. And the fact that we didn't get a go from the launch director at 45 seconds was not a good sign. But it's okay. This is good. You're supposed to catch these issues so it doesn't destroy the rocket, because now it'll just fly tomorrow, hopefully. Tomorrow's weather forecast. Why don't we pull that up? What's tomorrow's weather forecast? A little bit not quite as good in terms of the launch conditions. So tomorrow is 30% chance of violating conditions, meaning 70% chance of go. But again, we have low upper level wind shear risk criteria, but upper level winds are a tricky thing, man. We had low risk criteria for upper level winds today, and we still scrubbed. So, all right, we'll grab a couple questions before we wrap up here. Upper level winds were not ideal. Yep, we're pretty sure that that's what the scrub was for, but they haven't actually called it for sure. I'm kind of waiting to see if a lot of times SpaceX will tweet something out pretty quickly, but we're assuming it's due to upper level winds. Have they tweeted yet? No, nothing yet. Not that I see. Yeah, nothing yet. Oh, bummer. I hate scrubs, but better than kaboom boom. What about SN9? So yeah, SN9, which is the next Starship, was supposed to roll out to the launch pad on Monday. Sounds like that's getting delayed because today it tipped over in the vertical assembly bay, and it didn't tip completely over. It's a pretty small bay, so it was on some sort of stand, tipped over in the bay, and it's now leaning against the side of it. So they were working on getting a crane out to try to get that righted, but we don't know. At a minimum, it's probably going to be a delay, but whether or not they completely scrap the whole vehicle, just use it for parts on SN10 or beyond, they wouldn't use it for parts for SN10, but they would use it for parts on future vehicles. We don't know. They may. I mean, the vehicle is stainless steel, so maybe it's tough. Maybe it's tough enough. They can just buff it out, and they'll be good to go. We don't know, but it's at a minimum, it's going to be at least a delay. Gregorius says 48-hour recycle. Did they just tweet that out? I don't see that anywhere. Oh, is it on the weather thing? No, 24-hour recycle, because they got a launch opportunity tomorrow, right? Oh, Gregorius says it's a 48-hour recycle on the mission control stream. Oh, they just play that over the mission control audio? I closed that. I don't have it up anymore. Interesting. Let's get the mission control audio back up. How far back was it?
Up for a 48-hour recycle.
There it is.
That will be a launch attempt on 12/13 UTC.
12/13 UTC.
48.
So,
This is LD.
so here's the launch director right here.
This is LD on countdown. Notification will be setting up for a 48-hour recycle. That will be a launch attempt on 12/13 UTC.
12/13. So it looks like they're not going tomorrow. They're going to go Sunday. Interesting. All right. Well, so throw this out the window. The weather conditions that I have on the map, because it's going to be a 48-hour recycle. So it looks like it's going to be on Sunday. Sunday about the same time. Still should be roughly the same time. Maybe a few minute difference, but it should be still be about the same time. So there you go. 48-hour recycle this time. All right. Let's see what else we got. Thanks for that, Gregorius. Thanks for the tip off there. Let's see what else we got for a couple questions, and then we'll wrap up here for today since we're getting no launch. Virginia, one of our supporters. Thanks, Virginia. Thanks for your support. Says SN9 tipping over in the high bay there is better than it tipping over on the launch pad. That is for sure. Definitely. We don't want that. SN9 is taking a small nap. Let's see what else we've got. When is SN9 coming out of the factory? Well, it's supposed to be Monday, but and by factory it's a high bay, an assembly bay that's in Boca Chica. But like I said, yeah, it tipped over, so it's gonna be delayed a little bit. Virginia said, are you aware of the Virgin Galactic that will be launching tomorrow? Yes, I am. I probably won't cover it live with a live video like this, but I am aware of it. We'll probably be talking about it in our Discord if you want to join the Discord and chat it up with us. That's free. There's no cost to do that, so consider joining our Discord. And I'll give you my sales pitch while I'm here. I do it every time, but if you want to go the extra mile and help support the channel, consider becoming a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member. It all goes right back into the channel and helps me do stuff like this. And then you can also get access to some behind the scenes in our secret Discord channel. If you're a Patreon member or a YouTube channel member in the top 2 tiers, you get access to some of our secret stuff where we do, maybe a little more gaming, a little more chatting up, behind the scenes stuff. We should do something behind the scenes maybe for our, since we just hit 50,000 YouTube subscribers. Probably gonna have to do some more behind the scenes stuff for that. But I haven't had 2 seconds to think about that since we just had Starship and then this one, and then we need to take a breath. I need to take a breath. Red always says it's not a secret if you tell them. The content is secret, but it exists. What education do you have? I'm a software engineer, and I'm just a big space fan. But I do have a software engineering degree. That's just what I do for my regular job. It was scrubbed. Yep, we're scrubbed today, likely due to upper level winds. I was kind of hoping that they might update us and say for sure, but we believe it's due to upper level winds. That was the big watch item today. They called the hold at 30 seconds, which is typically their final weather gate, where they make a final weather decision right at 30 seconds. And that's right when they called the hold. It was like literally, what was it, like 2 seconds after I was like, launch director didn't say go. Are they going to make it past 30? And then they called hold. I was like, yeah, all right. Well, they didn't make it. So, what's the Discord channel? If you type !Discord in the YouTube chat, our friendly Nightbot will give you an invitation link to our Discord. So type !Discord and then look for Nightbot. He'll give you a link. If he's around. Sometimes he's sleeping. Is Nightbot around today? There he is. There's Nightbot. Can you explain the red flare on the launch pad of Delta IV Heavy? Is it for venting hydrogen? Yeah, that's the flare stack that they have for hydrogen burnoff. I'm gonna admit, I only watched just a tiny bit of the Delta IV Heavy launch. I watched it for just a few minutes. I was exhausted yesterday from all the SN8 activity. So I did watch, but I think I was still like half asleep watching it. Because I was exhausted all day yesterday. All right. Well, I think that's probably going to end it because as James Stephenson asks, he says, how do you work at a regular job and still have time to do all this? Well, James, that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to go back to work. So I take a quick break, hang out with you guys for a bit, and then I got to go back to work and do some regular work for the day. So that's going to do it for me. I guess we'll be back Sunday for the next launch attempt here. It's going to be a 48-hour recycle. They'll try again Sunday. Hopefully we can see it launch Sunday. Everybody can go outside and shake your fist at the sky and say, upper level winds. Pretty sure that's what our scrub was for today. So it's a bummer, but I'll be around in Discord. If anybody wants to chat it up, consider joining. No cost. And we will see you guys hopefully Sunday for our next launch attempt. All right, well, thanks for the quick stream here, everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name's Tori. This is Overlook Horizon, and I'll see you Sunday. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good day.